Chapter 14. They're all going off to a separate meeting, I said. All the full members. I'd sure like to know what goes on in that meeting. I struggled to sound normal, but my insides were churning. I saw people heading that way, Rachel pointed. Let's see if we can get close, I said. What's going on? Marco asked. I thought we just decided everything was normal here. It was Cassie who answered him. Nothing is normal here, she said. Can't you feel it? She shivered. All these so-called full members, they're all being so perfectly nice, so perfectly helpful. They're so perfectly normal, it's abnormal. And all the time their eyes are following you like a hungry dog watching a bone. Creepy, Rachel agreed. Like if you took cheerleaders, combined them with gym teachers, and made them all drink 10 cups of coffee. They're all just a little too happy, aren't they? Marco admitted. People keep telling me how all their problems disappeared once they became a full member of the sharing. It's like some cult or something. I'm getting into that secret meeting, I said. I had to know. I had to be dead sure. Let's get away from the fire, over behind that lifeguard stand. How are you going to get into the meeting? Marco asked. Oh, they won't worry about some stray dog that's walking along the beach, I said. Some stray... Oh, Marco said. Good idea, Cassie said. I'd do it too, but the only morph I can do is a horse. They would notice a horse. I checked to see that no one could see us. I waved over my head. A few seconds later, Tobias came swooping silently out of the starlit sky. He landed on the lifeguard stand. What's up? The full members are off in some private get-together, I told him. Do you know where they are? Of course. With these eyes, I can see the mice scampering through the dune grass. Nice, plump, tasty-looking things. Tobias, get a grip! Don't start eating mice just because you're in a hawk's body. What's next? Roadkill? He didn't say anything. Maybe he was offended at my suggestion that he would ever eat roadkill. Or worse, maybe he wasn't offended. Where are the full members? I asked. About 100 yards down the beach. There's a little bowl-like area formed by the dunes. There are people posted all around though, like guards. I nodded. Good job, Tobias. You've been in that body for more than an hour. You need to morph back. No, I'll keep watch from above for a while longer, he said. No, Tobias, I said sharply. You need to morph back. You've done what we needed you to do. There is that little problem. I don't exactly have any clothes on. Marco has your clothes in a bag. Rachel and Cassie will turn away while you morph. Cassie grinned. I'm going to have to teach you boys how to morph clothing. Still, Tobias hesitated. I hate changing back. It's like going back into a prison or something. I hate it when I don't have wings. Tobias, you can always return to your hawk morph later, Rachel reassured him. Now come on, both of you. I'll look the other way so your delicate boy modesty isn't offended. I took a deep breath. It was only my second morph. It still seemed totally ridiculous that I was even thinking about becoming a dog. But as I concentrated, I could begin to feel the itchiness and the squirmy feeling as Homer's DNA combined with the Andalite technology and began to change me. At the same time, I could see fingers growing from the ends of Tobias's wings. Keep a grip on your human side, Cassie warned me. We can't have you off chasing cats or whatever. You need to focus hard on staying in control. I started to say, yes, I know, but it came out, "Row." I was already changed too much to make normal human speech. I thought my answer instead. Yes, I know, Cassie, don't worry. But I do worry, she said softly. I nuzzled her hand with my cold nose, and she patted my head. I set off across the sand. Cassie had been right to warn me. The dunes, the surf, the low chirping of seabirds in their hidden nests, all of it was so perfect for distracting my dog mind. I heard something breathing in the seagrass, and then it broke and ran. I was off after it before I could even think. It ran, and I chased. I think it may have been a chipmunk or something. I never could be sure, because it found a hole and went diving in. I dug frantically in the sand for a while before my human brain realized, "Whoa, Jake, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Stop it!" I made myself walk toward the meeting. I could hear the murmur of voices. I started to creep closer, then realized that was dumb. Dogs don't creep around. They just walk or run. If I went around acting like Spy Dog, that would make people pay attention. So I wandered along, like any dog out for an evening stroll along the beach. My tongue lolled out of my mouth. My tail wagged occasionally. The only thing I had to be careful of was not to let Tom see me too clearly. After all, I looked exactly like Homer. Basically, I was Homer. I approached the edge of the area. There were high dunes all around. About 20 or 30 people were standing together. Unfortunately, with my weak dog eyes, I couldn't see them very well in the darkness. But I could hear them. I could hear them amazingly well. Sounds that I thought would barely have noticed with my human hearing were as loud as a boombox set on 9. And I could smell. It's funny about smell. As a human, you don't really get into it. But when I laid back and let my dog abilities come up, smell became as good as sight. Different, but just as good for some things. I heard Tom's voice, and I smelled a subtle combination of things that meant he was not too far away. There was a man on guard, but all he did was look down at me, then look away. No one cares about a stray dog. I was beginning to realize why the Andalite had given us the power to morph. There are things you can do as an animal that you could never do as a human. The members all seemed to be waiting for someone to arrive. I heard Tom say, "He should be here soon. Wait, here he comes." There was a stirring, muttering sound. I heard footsteps approach. I moved closer, but stayed out of the light. "Everyone quiet, we have problems," the voice said. The voice! I knew that voice. It was the same voice that had been at that construction site. It was the voice that had said, "Just save the head. Bring that to me and we can identify it." I crept a little closer. I had to look hard to see him with my dog sight. But then, when he turned just the right way, I saw him. I recognized him. It was someone I knew. Someone I saw every day at school. None other than Assistant Principal Chapman. My assistant principal was a controller. Item 1. We still have not found the brats who were at the construction site, Chapman said. His voice was hard. I want them found. Vista 3 wants them found. Does anyone have any clues? For a moment, no one spoke. Then I heard a second familiar voice. It could have been anyone, Tom said, but it might be the one who's my brother Jake. I know he goes through the construction site sometimes. That's why I brought him here tonight, so we could either make him ours or kill him. Chapter 15. Either make him ours or kill him. I felt like someone had punched me. I told myself that Tom was a human controller. Some slimy, snotty slug from another planet was in his brain controlling him. When he talked to me, it wasn't even Tom, not really. It was a Yeerk. My brother, one of them. Chapman, one of them. They were everywhere. Everywhere. How were we going to stop them? How could we even try? If they could take my own brother from me, if they could take Tom, then how was I going to be able to stop them? It was insane. Marco was right. I think if I had been fully human right then, despair would have just overpowered me. But dogs don't know about despair. It was Homer's simple, happy, hopeful mind that saved me. For a while, I just sort of let go and drifted into dog consciousness. I didn't want to think. I didn't want to be a human being. For a while, I just wandered around the dunes and smelled things. But I knew I had a job to do. After a while, I let go of the simple happiness of the dog and forced myself back into painful reality. I waited and listened some more to the meeting. But I was still so upset. I didn't really track on a lot of what was being said. I just kept hearing it over and over in my head. Make him ours or kill him. One other thing that did stick in my mind was Tom discussing with some other guy, some other controller, the schedule for going to the Yerk pool. He'd just been and was feeling good, he said. He'd be heading back on Monday night. That was the slug in his head talking. The Yerk that controlled Tom needed to return to the Yerk pool. Then I heard another voice. Cassie! I slunk quickly around the back of a dune to get closer. But I could hear clearly. Cassie's voice, and another voice it took me a minute to recognize. It was the policeman. The same policeman. Hey, what are you doing back here? The policeman demanded. I was just looking for shells, Cassie said. This is just for full members, the policeman said gruffly. Private business. You understand? Yes, sir, Cassie said in her most humble voice. I got to where I could see them, although I have to tell you, dog sight is not exactly great. Everything is like an old TV with bad colour and all blurry. The policeman was staring hard at Cassie. Cassie was trying to be brave, but I could smell the fact that she was afraid. Okay, take off, the policeman said at last. But I have my eye on you. Get back with the others. Cassie turned and headed away as fast as she could walk. I caught up with her. I guess seeing a dog come bounding out of nowhere startled her, because she jumped. Oh, it's you, she said. Yeah, that was close. What were you doing there? She shrugged. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I was safer than you were, I pointed out. We got back to the spot where Rachel, Marco, and Tobias were waiting. I didn't even want to morph back into my human body. I knew that I could just let myself go again, and in a few minutes my dog brain would forget why my human brain was sad. If someone would just throw a stick out into the surf, I could go after it. The water would make me happy. The chasing would make me happy. Now I knew why Tobias was so reluctant to leave his hawk's body. Being an animal could be a nice way to escape from all your troubles. I began to morph back into my own body. Cassie and Rachel turned and looked out toward the water. When I was completely myself again, I said, Marco, you were right. Tom is a controller. Marco did not look pleased about being right. I told them what Tom had said to Chapman about bringing me to the meeting to either use me or kill me. Wait a minute, Chapman is one of them too? Rachel asked. Our Chapman? Mr. Chapman, the assistant principal. I think he's some kind of leader, I said. It was him the other night at the construction site. He was the one who told the hawk Bajir just to keep the head. That is so Chapman, Marco said. I suggest we get the heck out of here, Tobias said. No, it's okay, I said. Chapman told Tom there was not to be any killing at a sharing meeting. They don't want any suspicious activities. He also said they couldn't just go around killing every kid who might have been at the construction site. They needed to be sure. Well, that's decent of them, Rachel said dryly. Not really. Chapman just said that for a while longer they still have to avoid attracting too much attention. A bunch of kids start turning up dead and people will definitely notice. He said they should just wait. Kids can't keep quiet for long about seeing aliens. When the kids talk, the controllers will find them and get rid of them. Except that we aren't going to talk about what we saw, Rachel said. You got that right, Marco agreed. We aren't saying anything. We are forgetting everything we saw and we are getting on with our normal lives. And leave Tom the way he is? I demanded. No way. Never. He's my brother and I'm going to save him. Just how do you figure you'll do that? Marco asked sarcastically. Let's see, it's you versus Chapman, the cops, a bunch of Hawk-Bajir and Taxons, and, worst of all, that creep Visser 3. All you can do to fight them is turn into a dog and bite their ankles. It's like being stuck in the most impossible video game ever invented. I grinned, or at least I showed my teeth. Yeah, it is kind of, but I'm pretty good at video games. And he won't be alone, Rachel said. I'm in this too. And me, Tobias said. Me too, Cassie agreed. Swell, Marco said. So suddenly you're the Fantastic Four. This isn't a comic book, this is real. We heard the sound of people coming through the dunes. The meeting of the full members had broken up. Everyone quiet, I said. We'll let this ride, for now. I said that to calm Marco down. I had no intentions of letting it ride. I pulled Cassie aside. Listen, Cassie, I need an animal morph that will let me watch Chapman without him seeing me. What do you have at the farm? Cassie got quiet for a moment. Let me think. We have a lot of injured birds, of course. We have the wolf with the broken leg. We have the wildcat with one eye. I waited while she went down a list of all the animals in the wildlife rehabilitation clinic. Suddenly, Cassie snapped her fingers. I wonder, how small an animal do you think we can morph? I shrugged. I had no idea. I may have something in mind, she said. It's not really in the clinic as a patient. It's just sort of lives there. It's small. It can crawl up walls. It's fast if you need to get away. And I guess it can hear and see okay. Which is how I ended up in Cassie's barn later that night, crawling beneath cages full of sick buzzards and between a pair of jumpy deer, looking for lizards. Chapter 16. I did it. Monday morning in my locker at school, I turned into a lizard. A green anole, to be exact. It's a member of the iguana family. Like you care. I waited till the bell rang for my first period, which was English class. When everyone else was out of the hallway, I just climbed into my locker. I tried to act cool about it, just in case anyone was watching. The locker was about 2 inches shorter than me, so I had to crouch. And it was so tight I couldn't move. The only light was from the 3 small ventilation slits. I could hear my heart pounding in the cramped, dark space. I was afraid. It was one thing to turn into a dog. I mean, it's weird, it's strange, but it's also kind of cool. Dogs are cool animals, but lizards? I should have practiced, I muttered under my breath. I really should have practiced like Cassie said. I started to focus for the morphing. I remembered the way we had caught the lizard the night before last. We'd spotted it with a flashlight, and Cassie had put a bucket over it so it couldn't get away. It had been fairly creepy, just touching it to acquire its DNA pattern. Now I was going to become it. The first thing I noticed was that I suddenly had more room inside the locker. I didn't have to crouch down, and my shoulders weren't scrunched up anymore. I touched my face with one hand. My skin was looser than it should have been, and pebbly to the touch. I ran my hand over my head. My hair was almost all gone. things began to happen very fast. The locker grew and grew around me. It was big as a barn, big as a stadium. I was like falling off a skyscraper and taking forever to hit the ground. I was standing on something sticky and as large as a boulder. How had a boulder gotten into my locker? But then I realized it was a wad of gum. An old, chewed wad of gum stuck to the bottom of my locker. Gigantic drapes as big as the sails of a ship were falling all around me. They were my clothes. In the dim light, I could see two monstrous, misshapen things on either side of me. I could just make out the Nike swoosh and realize they were my shoes. They were the size of houses. And then the lizard brain kicked in. Fear! Trapped! Run! Run, 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 run! I shot left. A wall! I scampered up, feeling my feet stick to it. Trapped! I jumped back. Another hard surface. Trapped! Run, 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 run! I fought to get control, but the lizard brain was panicked. It didn't know where it was. It wanted out. Out! Go toward the light, I ordered my new body. The ventilation slits. That was the way out. But the body was afraid of the light. It was terrified. I was still bouncing off the walls. I could not overcome the panic instincts of the lizard body. Go to the light, I screamed inside my head. And suddenly I was there. I poked my head out and my body slithered after me. My tongue flicked out and I got a weird kind of input from it. Like smell, only not quite. It kept flicking. I could see it shoot out of my mouth and lick the air. In the bright light, I realized how bad the lizard eyes were. I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. Everything was shattered and twisted around. Down was up and up was down. Colours weren't even close to right. I tried to think. Come on, Jake. You have eyes on the side of your head now. They don't focus together. They see different things. Deal with it. I tried to make sense of the pictures using this knowledge, but they were still a mess. It seemed to take me forever to figure it out. One eye was looking down the hall to the left. The other was looking down the hall to the right. I was upside down, gripping the side of the locker, which was like a long grey field that wouldn't end. And all the time, the green Anole brain was fighting me. Now that it was out of the dark locker, it desperately wanted to go back in. Chapman's office, I reminded myself. But where was it? Left, that way. Suddenly, I was off and running, straight down the hall. Zoom! Then on level floor. Zoom! Around a scrap of paper twice as big as I was. The ground flew past. It was like being strapped onto a crazy, out-of-control missile. Then my lizard brain sensed the spider. It was a strange thing, like I wasn't sure if I saw the spider, or heard it, or smelled it, or tasted it on my flicking lizard tongue, or just suddenly knew it was there. I took off after it, racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour before I could even think about stopping. My legs were a blur, they moved so fast. It probably wasn't a huge spider, not if you were a great big human being, but to my lizard eyes, it looked as big as a small child. It was huge. I could see the compound eyes. I could see the individual joints in its 8 legs. I could see the clicking, awful mandibles. The spider ran. I ran after it. I was faster. No! I screamed inside my head, but too late. My head jerked forward, fast as a striking snake. My jaws snapped, and suddenly the spider was in my mouth. I could feel it fighting. I could feel the spider's legs squirming and fighting to get out of my mouth. I tried to spit it out, but I couldn't. The lizard's hunger for that spider was too great. I swallowed the spider. It was like swallowing a whole canned ham. a canned ham that was fighting all the way down. No, no, no! My brain cried in horror and disgust, but at the same time the lizard brain was pleased. I could feel it become slightly calmer. That does it, I told myself. I am out of this morph. I wanted out of that horrible little body. I didn't care who saw me. I was going to morph back to human shape. Marco was right. It was insane to get involved in this. Insane! I heard the ground shake. It was a noise like a giant stomping across the land. It was a giant. There was a huge shadow in the sky. It was like someone was trying to crush me by dropping an entire building on my head. The shoe came down. I scampered left. Another shoe. My tail! The shoe was on my tail. I was trapped.